rapidly, and all the other approaches like less and things that are very, very well known are at the single digit. Okay. Just the state of things. Okay, these are just surveys. They're not logic or anything. They are surveys. But you can think these companies are not doing these things without studying and debating and looking into it very carefully. So in any case, so the momentum is behind SAFe. Okay, so some of the values behind SAFe, this is behind Scrum. The values are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. If you have done this, you will recognize this immediately. If you don't, then why transparency? Everybody who works on it is to know everything they need to know, otherwise they cannot adapt quickly enough. So transparency is extremely important. All the techniques, you talk about techniques of daily stand-up, all these things, they are just to do. Okay. Now, if you just do that without aiming to get these things, then you're just going through the motion. That's why they say Scrum is hard. Scrum is hard because if you just do it without aiming for these things to happen, you'll in effect just go through the motion. That's what it is. That's why it's hard. So you need to keep your eye on this. And if you keep your eye on this, then as you go through the motion, you will get what you want to get. Okay? Transparency, inspection, regular inspections, what happened? So to your point about getting data, you don't do it on a hunch. You see the data, inspect, right? And then you know what you need to do, and then you aim for that, right? And adaptation. Now, when you work on larger teams or multiple teams dependent on each other, there are other values that come to the fore. For example, alignment. So all the different teams need to align to the same thing and align with the business and align with the clients. Otherwise, you start producing things that diverge, and that would be horrible for you in terms of the output. Built-in quality. So as you build things, you pass, that other people use. If the quality is not there, in effect, you have what is called technical debt, and you will pay for it multiple times later. So you don't want that to happen. What they say is, quality is built in. Quality cannot be inspected in, right? Once you build it, it's there already. Okay? So very important to have that mindset. Transparency again, and program execution, because you execute on a large scale, everybody at the same time. So program execution is something everybody needs to focus on. Otherwise, they will diverge. They will not be in sync. You finish the tail of the plane before the people who finish the fuselage, and that you cannot meet at the end, right? So that you are delayed. Things like that. Essential Lean-Agile practices. So this starts to be technical. I'm just going to skip over a bit. I have it there. And I have some handouts. I teach this thing at. I teach SAFe, the introduction of SAFe at UCSC Extension. It's a lot of stuff, so I tend to capture small little reminders for people, and I have some examples for you. So, when you do Agile, okay, because you need to do it well. When you do Agile, beware, okay. Most things, when people do things, they look at, can we change the processes? Okay, very important. Can we change the architecture of the solution or things? Very important as well, of course. But did you know, who here has heard of Conway Law? Yeah, okay. Yes, Conway Law says this, and it's a law. It's not a mathematical law. It's more like a physics law. You observe, and you see it so many times, it becomes a law. It happens all the time, or often enough. That's what it is. The first guy who observed it was Mel Conway, and people have been following it, and it's true. The way your company is organized, your teams are organized, how you communicate with each other, will dictate how you build your product, believe it or not. So, yeah, so you may have processes and architecture and things like that, but things come out because of your structure, okay?
Yes, sir.
And structure is even dwarfed by your culture. Okay? So if you want to do an agile transformation, you need to look at the whole thing. You need to look at culture and all these things. So regarding Scrum and all these things, going through the motion actually has a value, has a very good value, because it establishes the culture. If everybody has to do it, first of all, you do have a culture of doing it. Now, if at the same time you're aiming for the results that you should be aiming for, then you have a way to improve. And actually, that's the other thing about Agile. One thing in Scrum that is often overlooked is the retrospective. So, as you keep doing every incremental iteration, you need to discuss about how you can improve. If you keep improving, you'll eventually be good. Okay. It's not to be good out of the gate. That's asking for a lot, and in any case, that's just a static result. If you keep improving, that's the thing to shoot for. Okay. That's the power of Agile. I think that's about. Okay, so this is a shameless plug about my course at UCSC, July and August. If you want to know what SAFE is, it's a 5-week course. I think that's it. All right, so
We have some time for Q&A.
we do have a lot of time, so any question, debate, disagreement, shout out. Maybe you can put the mic on. Yes.
My question is, we're at a hardware manufacturing company. How can you discuss Agile and SAFe and so forth as it relates to products that are a combination of
Yes,
hardware
our
and
systems.
software?
Yes, literally they are systems, right? Correct. So SAFe does address, actually SAFe is not just for software, although my talk is mainly software, and for a good reason, because there's a whole lot of software to be developed. That's the thing. That was that. But other than that, there's a lot of new systems being developed as well. Now, hardware is handled differently for this reason. That is, once you design your hardware, right, and you commit to the design and you start to produce in volume, then changes will be very, very expensive. That's the traditional thing. But along the way, there is such a thing as well. Along the way, there is such a thing as the design, incremental design, and keeping your options open, right? So there are certain things to do. It's not just one or the other. There are certain things to do. Let me convey that in another, by an example. I was working with a Chinese partner, okay? And we wanted to make a robot out of, they produce the hovercraft, these things that you step on and they have a gyroscope and they move around. So we talked to them about producing a robot. Now that company produced $3 million worth of hovercraft, put in the warehouse. While those things were in the warehouse, the UL revised their code for hovercraft, and they cannot sell those hovercrafts anymore. They do not meet the new code, and so for the longest time they were trying to figure out, can they retrofit, can they do anything. At the end of the day, they could not do anything. They lost $3 million. Okay. So, meaning what? So one big thing that SAFe teaches is that you keep your options open. At the cost of keeping multiple options open and decide only when you absolutely need to decide, right? So there are certain things, certain techniques to use in hardware as well. Not exactly the same.
Yeah, simple picture. I have to agree with you about the software hardware, that hardware needs to solidify sooner, which means that you need more agile at the early spots. What I'd like to add to that is that hardware tends to be less available to post-release updates, which also affects that. But the agile process is the same, it just kind of skews a little differently, and so the medium moves between them.
Yes. Thank you. I want to add another perspective. I mean, you need to look at the whole thing. Is this? You need to look at the whole game you're playing. Actually, look. I'm going to produce some newfangled, shoe for athletes that can measure your stuff, right? Okay. There are a lot of uncertainty, but hey, forget the damn uncertainty. If I'm the first company with those shoes out in the market, I will start selling now. Okay. Now, granted, 2 years from now, that's the wrong shoe. Doesn't matter. I made my money. I'll make the new shoe the different way. Doesn't matter. So speed still is very important, and all these things, right? You need to keep the eye on the big picture and play as a team to the whole picture. The thing, I think at the end of the day, one thing that I myself personally retain from Agile is this. You work as a team, and the whole team is going to go out and compete in the market in a very agile way and beat the competition. That's what it means, right? And get the revenues. As opposed to there is a perfect picture somewhere, we're shooting for that, and you just chase your tail, right?
So there is actually another way.
We'll get to you next.
I was going to say, thank you. Very good presentation, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Question for you. Within your presentation, you kind of identified two terms, iterative and incremental. Can you define those for me, please?
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a difference. So
Yeah. So Agile is specifically about that. Iterative. It's not Kanban, for example. Kanban is about managing flow, for example, to have rapid flow, and it has its utmost importance as well. But that's a different thing. So Agile is about iterative and incremental. Meaning what? Meaning you don't do a very big thing and have everybody wait for years, for example, in the traditional way. Scrum says at most 1 month, right? So you put something out that can be used in 1 month. That's as long as you will take. That's the iterative part. Why? Because you learn a lot of things. Can it be done? Is there any technical issue? So you face it and you fix it, right? Or will people want it? Okay, they would love for me to do face recognition. The Google Glass. Well, people hate it. Guess what? You develop the whole damn thing. People hate it. You jump the whole thing, right? So that's one. And Agile, incremental and iterative. And you keep doing it, right? So you can correct your shot.
Okay.
So you're committed to put something out. And then you're committed to change as needed. And sometimes the change can be really big, which is a pivot. They call it a pivot. It can be really big. But you need to keep an eye on it all the time. If you cook pasta, you leave it there for a long time. But when it's about to be cooked, you don't want it overcooked or undercooked. Then you taste every little second, basically.
Thank you.
Thanks. Excellent. This is really enlightening. Actually, how you put all these data together. So going back to the previous question about hardware. So I would actually say that there is another way in the spirit of your talk. Software is important, and actually more and more hardware development can be shifted to essentially treat it as software, doing model-driven simulations, all those things, so you can really delay those decisions because you can analyze, you can figure out which way works better, and then actually so you can really backload hardware and then do most of the software. So excellent. Thank you for the lead.
Thanks, Georgian. Yeah, thanks. By the way, you don't have to agree with me. I mean, the more we discuss, the more we get smarter. And thanks for that comment. Right on the dot. the whole thing is not, we want to be agile, we want to apply this. Who cares? The real thing is, do you win doing what you do, right? And yeah, exactly. So if you can go for it and make the revenues, then go for it. If you cannot make the revenue, then yeah, then watch out, right? It's just like playing soccer, you know. The guy moves here, I mean, are you going to run over there? Well, if he moves here, then you're done, right? So be careful, right? So, but sometimes you're too careful and then off you go. So, yeah.
So I manage Agile programs. The one thing that puzzles me always is, you know, when you do iterative programming, you try, you fail, and then in the next iteration, you fix it, right? But have you ever measured the wastage, the opportunity cost that's lost? Because you're trying this, but if I go with a waterfall model, I do all my appointments, I know what I'm going to do. Whereas here, I'm losing the opportunity, also the wastage, because I'm trying, failing, throwing.
Understood. Okay, I understand. If I may, okay, if I may inject a different perspective on it. It's not, the waterfall makes assumptions that are not true. So, in waterfall, you define it. It's called be the big design up front. You define it, you design it, and